Hey guys, Mackay here with Ironside Ranch. Today we're going to talk about how to buy a used tractor. So the tractor that we're using for this example is our tractor. This is our John Deere 4200. Y'all have seen it in plenty of videos. We only have the one tractor. We'll eventually probably have two. I'm not a huge equipment buff. I like to have the minimum amount of equipment I need to do my job, but I don't like having a bunch of engines to maintain. So I tend to get rid of stuff. So that's why no matter how big we get, we'll probably only have the minimum amount of tractors we need to do our job, which is probably going to be two. If we continue to grow, maybe have a third one, but probably only ever going to be two. I don't see us getting bigger beyond that point. So that's why you see the same tractor in all of our videos. Now, we're going to talk about how to buy a used tractor. Buying new equipment is great, but just like cars, I don't buy new tractors. I let somebody else eat the depreciation on that, and I look for good deals on it and try to find something that's in decent condition. So before we ever go to a place to look for a tractor or go to a farm to look at tractors, we got to determine what do we want, which I have other videos on that on this channel, so you guys can look at that on like how to pick your tractors, the features that you want, like horsepower, hydraulics, front end loaders, four-wheel drive, etc. We have all those videos on here, and we're getting ready to start our Tractor Tip Tuesday. So every Tuesday I'm going to try to put out a tractor tip, and that'll answer in individual videos a lot of those same questions. And so we've got a number of those coming out. So we're going to try to have that one popping out every single Tuesday. It'll probably be Tuesday afternoon that one posts, but we'll like I said, we should be starting that next week, maybe the week after. So anyways, before we get to our site, we've done all the research, we've figured out what tractor we want to get. We want to make sure what we're doing first is on the hours of the tractor. How many hours do we want to buy on the tractor? Now there's some older tractors, especially some of those ones like you look at the case ones with the 5.9 Cummins diesel. Somebody hauling ass by us, sorry. The old case ones with the 5.9 Cummins diesel, those tractors, 10,000 hours was not a lot of hours on something like that. So there's all sorts of different rules on this. There's some people that use a rule of thumb is that every 1,000 hours is like 100,000 miles on a car. So, but cars get very different mileage. So two Chevy Bolts or Saturns or whatever, little sedans of some sort, they're going to get relatively similar mileage depending on where they're at, whether it's highway or city. Those are really the only two options there. Other than that, the mileage is going to be the same. Now, we're not talking about big trucks. Those are a little different. But for cars, the mileage is going to be relatively the same. Tractors have very different uses. Some people baby their tractors. Some people are like me and run their tractors hard, but we do a lot of good maintenance on our tractors. So we take care of stuff if we have issues, but we run our tractors to the extreme. And so we want to get our money out of our tractors, and you don't necessarily want to buy your tractors from somebody that runs theirs probably quite as hard as we run ours, if you can avoid it. Now again, we take really good care of our maintenance, so there is a little bit of a balance there. If we sell tractors or flip tractors, it's ones that we're not running here on the farm. But something like this, we run this 4200 to death, and we use it really, really heavy. And so because of that, we do have a lot of maintenance and a lot of repairs on it. But the engine hours are hard hours, and it's been run rough, but it's been well maintained. And so what we're ideally looking for when we buy a used tractor is we're looking for somebody that maintains their equipment very well, and that has used this for light duty. So before we get into the mechanics of it and what we're looking for when we actually get on site, the last thing that we want to talk about is before we ever go look at that vehicle or that tractor, I'm sorry, we want to let the person know that we're buying it from. We want to tell them specifically, do not start that tractor before I get there to do my test drive on it. We want to see how easily it starts up. We want to make sure that it cranks over, and that as soon as you have contact on that switch, you get a good startup on it, and that it doesn't have a rough cold start or a rough idle after starting or anything along those lines. A lot of those issues will go away if we warm up the engine. So we're going to ask them not to do that, and right when we come up to the vehicle, we're going to go ahead and either take it, if you have a thermal, an IR gun, the little thermal camera thing, or a little thermal gun thing, you can shine it at the muffler and see you're at the engine block, but you can put your hand right up to it. You can see if you feel any heat off of it. If you don't feel any heat off of it, give it a little tap and see. As long as you don't feel any heat on there, you should be good to go in that. Okay, so there's not necessarily a best order on the portions of the tractor that we want to look at. So we can just start at the rear, pick whatever tire, pick the right rear tire, and start working your way around the tractor. So we'll pick a spot so that it makes it very easy for us to go around. First thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at the tires. Now the type of the tires you do have to look at and make sure that A, it's the type of tire that you want, or you have to plan on buying new tires. And B, you should make sure and take a picture of the number on here, the size tire, so 14 by 17.5 NHS. That's what these ones are. Now, tractor tires, I'm not an expert on. I always forget how these tire sizes work in comparison with car tires, I know, but the tractor tires are a little bit different. So make sure and look up exactly what that is for those tires and how much a new tire is going to cost you. Specifically, if you're buying a used tractor, there's a good chance you're going to end up replacing them at some point in time. Now here you can see we've got some cracks in the sidewall, and so this one, it's not horrible, but it does tell us that these tires are limited on their service life left. We'll probably get a few more years out of these, but we may just go ahead and replace them before we have any issue with them and just get new tires on there. We'll get to that here this winter when and see kind of what we're looking at. But for right now, this is what we want to look at buying this used tires. Do we have any cracking in the sidewall? Do we have any bulges in the tires? What's our tread look like? So our tread depth here actually still looks pretty good. So really, for us, the only downside here is the cracking on the tires. The other thing we want to check out the rim here. We want to see, do we see any rust in the rim? Have they been using calcium chloride for filler, for ballast fill in the tires? Because if you see any rust here, there's a good chance that they are using calcium chloride on your ballast fill. And so we definitely want to, if we don't have any rust here yet, we want to change out that ballast fill in there and put something that's a little bit better product for it if we suspect that that's what they're using. Also, knowing if they have the ballast fill in there is a good thing too. You can always take the cap off here. See that? And we can see if we get a little water out. So this side doesn't have any on it. There's no ballast fill on this side. This is the side that I slipped the rim off of. So the ballast fill for this tire is actually on the other side. I got to do them both up again. But there's no bubbling of water or anything coming out of there. So we know the ballast isn't filled here. We know that this side does have a ballast fill in it. So that's a very easy way to check. And it works unless they have foam filled tires on here. If the rear tires are old, the front tires are probably going to be worse. The front tires tend to take more of a beating than the rear tires do. And so we need to go ahead and plan on new tires here within the next few years, but not necessarily immediately for this tractor. Now here we can see we have a black cylinder on a green tractor. So the next thing that we're looking at is we're going to look and see what doesn't match. And if you have an orange tractor and something's not right, or the orange color is slightly off, then you know that part has been replaced. In this scenario, the cylinders have all been replaced. We rebuilt the hydraulics on this, replaced all the cylinders. Most of the lines, I've got a few more lines to do, but we're doing that after we get the hydraulic multiplier. So once we get the hydraulic multiplier, we'll put in some new cylinders and new lines. Now on this particular tractor, I knew the bucket had a small leak in it when I first started it up, and so I knew that I was going to have to be putting new cylinders on here. So that to us was no big deal. We knew it was part of the deal with this tractor. So in that case, we just went ahead and planned it into our future use for the tractor. And when the cylinders started going bad, we started replacing them. The hoses were 20 years old. Guys, a hose life is about 15 to 20 years. So if it's a 20-year-old tractor, you might as well plan on getting new hoses for it. You're going to be doing that at some point in time. And aftermarket hoses generally are better quality hoses than what you get from the factory anyways. So these are double wall hoses, and they're a little bit more expensive, but they're certainly a lot nicer. They open it up a little bit more, let a little bit more fluid to flow through there, and so it's just going to keep that heat down and get you a little bit more longevity out of those anyways. So I don't have any problem replacing those with better quality components. We put generic cylinders on there, so now we don't have to rebuild cylinders. These cylinders are cheaper to buy new ones than it is to even rebuild them, and they're bigger and stronger than the John Deere cylinders. Okay, so we went ahead and fired up our tractor. We raised the bucket up, so that's the very first thing we did. We did a cold start of it, fired up our tractor, and we moved the bucket up. So this is actually the first thing we want to do when we come out to the tractor, and we want to go ahead and get that bucket up. And all we're going to do is we're going to raise that bucket up, take our tape measure, and measure the distance on the tractor. Pick a spot on the front end loader. You can pick the bolt here, that's easy. So we're at about 49 inches on that. So About 30 minutes from now, we're going to come back as we finish going through this tractor. We're going to come back and measure this and see how much it falls over 30 minutes. It's not abnormal for these tractors to have a little bit of fall, guys, and have a little bit of loss in this. We had a decent amount, and we used it for a couple years until we blew the cylinders completely out. And then, like I said, we put all new cylinders on here now with new hydraulic lines, and we basically have none now. There's almost no settlement. The first night we left it up, and we left it up all throughout the night to see, and I don't think I even got a half an inch of settlement on it. It was really tight, and then it just didn't settle anymore. Now, but again, don't be surprised if you get a little bit of settlement in the hydraulics. Not a big deal to have a little minor movement in them. No problem at all. So we'll take our tape measure, go ahead and measure that, and like I said, we're going to do the same thing with the 3-point hitch at the back. We want to go ahead and measure that down and see what that drops to the ground. Now it's been about 30 minutes, so we'll go ahead and bring our tape measure back. We will measure, boom, 49 inches. No loss at all in our hydraulics. So the more obvious side to this is checking all the functions of the loader. Raise it all the way up, all the way down. Make sure it can lift the front of your tractor off the ground. It should be able to do that. It's actually a feature of the tractor to be able to use the bucket loader as a jack, and so we want to be able to lift the front end of the tractor off the ground. If you can't do that, there's a problem with the hydraulics on it. It's not giving you enough power. So we want to tilt our bucket all the way forward, all the way back. Do the same thing with the hydraulics on the rear, and do it with the 3-point hitch. Now the other thing you can see is we want to see, okay, so like I said, we noticed that we changed out these hydraulic cylinders, and you can see these cylinders have a gap here at the top where they don't slide, where these cylinders now slide, where the John Deere original factory cylinders didn't have. Now, in our case, what we are going to do is we are going to cut some spacers to go in there and actually fill that space in. We just haven't got to it yet, but that's one of the next maintenance tasks I've got on my list to do. But anyway, so we want to make sure that there's no play in these, that all these are tight, that we're looking at the greasers, that there's a bunch of extra grease around there showing us that he's been greasing this, and that everything is nice and tight in there, but that there's no slop in it. But at the same time that we've got a good feel in there for grease, that everything is moving correctly, and that it's not binding up there as we're trying to rotate the tractor around. Now you can see here on this tractor we have the JDQA, the John Deere Quick Attach. There's two types of quick attach, essentially two types of quick attaches. There's the John Deere Quick Attach and the Skid Steer Quick Attach. So JDQA and SSQA. Pick your poison on which one you like. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. We just have a John Deere tractor, so we have the JDQA, and that's what we're sticking with, and I don't have any problem with it. But and in a lot of ways I like this one better because I think it's real easy to get it on and off. But you definitely want to have a quick attach. If the tractor you're buying does not have a quick attach, then that actually can be something that you use in negotiating, because most tractors now have this. You're going to change out your bucket. We change ours out all the time. I change out the front of my tractor probably more than I do the rear of my tractor. So this to me is a deal breaker for me. I either have to have the quick attach on there, or I have to have the ability to put one on there, and that's going to be compensated in the price on that. So that's making sure that it has that as we move our way forward on the tractor. We're going to check all these hoses in here, making sure that we don't have any leaks. You can see these ones were cut just a little bit too long, so we do need to come in here and throw some zip ties around them and tie some things down. We just, again guys, it's on our maintenance list, haven't got to it yet, but we're working through the tractor. So as we slide back on here and keep going down the tractor, we're checking each one of these fittings, making sure that we don't have any leaks in the hydraulics, that none of these fittings feel juicy, but that we have lots of good grease up around these bolts here as we slide back down the tractor. Then we come to the quick connects down there. We want to make sure those quick connects here. Let me zoom in over here. I'm sorry. We want to make sure those quick connections down here for our front end loader are nice and in good shape. Now, you could go so far as to actually take the loader off. Personally, I would probably not deal with that, but I don't take my loader off anyways. We have never taken the loader off. If I ever want a little bit extra space, I just take off the bucket. Taking the loader off, to me, having a quick attach loader is kind of pointless. But anyways, we want to still make sure that those features function, and so checking all those quick attaches out and making sure that they at least appear to be properly installed. Now we'll come in here to our PTO shaft. We do want to make sure and run the PTO shaft. We want to make sure that when the tractor's on, the PTO is not spinning, when the tractor is, when the PTO is turned on, that the PTO shaft does engage properly. We also want to check our hydraulic fluid in here, make sure it's full. If it's not full, why? Has he not been keeping it full? Has he been running low on hydraulic fluid? If he's running it low on hydraulic fluid, is he running it low on oil? Is he running it low on the differential fluid? What else is that person doing to the tractor to beat it up? And so we want to go ahead and just check that fluid. That's a really easy one to see, and we can know for a fact that, hey, this guy has been maintaining his equipment, or at least appears to be maintaining his equipment, or no, he has not. Okay, next, while we're back here, we're going to go ahead and look at all of our electrical connections, making sure that everything is nice and tight and that the wires are zip tied up. Now, there might be a few electrical lines loose, like you can see over here. There's some that are loose on here that are not connected. That's typical on some of these tractors. Some of these manufacturers put those in there intentionally so that you can wire up lights later. That's how this one is. These electrical connections that are not connected were designed that way so that you can add lights later on, and it makes it easy when the dealer wants to add stuff. We also want to check the safety features. We want to make sure that any safety features are actually functioning, and if they're not, we want to make sure that they can, or that they can be restored. You can see here the seat safety switch on this tractor has been disabled. I can't believe somebody did that. So we want to make sure that if we ever sold this, you can see I put quick connects on here when we disabled it, but when we re-enable it, I can re-enable it at any point in time with these quick connects. And so if I'm working on something that I think I may want that seat safety switch on, then I would re-enable it. But for the most part, I leave it off on this particular tractor because it just gets in my way, and I tend to stand up when I'm mowing fields or whatever it is. Now, on that same line with safety, we want to check out and make sure that the tractor cannot start in gear. That is a safety feature that's really important so that we don't hit somebody if it starts in gear and automatically cranks forward. We shouldn't be able to start it in gear. You shouldn't be able to start it without your butt on it. There's a number of safety features, but the big one being that you can't start it unless it's in gear. That is an important safety feature that I definitely don't think people should bypass. Super important to have on there. So let's check that out and make sure that that works when we fire up this tractor. We're going to go through all of our functions in the control box. We're going to make sure that all of our lights work on here, that our blinkers work, and you can see here we busted out some of these back here, but that our blinkers work. And if they don't, what is the fix for them? A lot of tractors, the lights don't work. Figure out how important that is to you. Like we talked about in previous videos on our tractor, we're going to be mounting lights up top. But so on a lot of tractors, the lights don't work, or they don't do much anyway, so not a big deal. But we just want to know about it. We want to know what all needs to be done. We want to make sure that our throttle will actually allow the vehicle to idle forward, that it'll stay forward and allow it to actually work. Making sure that things like your lock for your loader bucket will actually lock the loader, and that it doesn't drop into lock all the time. On this tractor, there's a bend in the metal, and it drops it into the lock position all the time. I need to get in there with a pair of pliers and bend it back. We'll go ahead and raise and lower our three-point hitch, turn on our PTO, check all these functions. We're going to run it through each range of gears on here. So we're going to run it through, this one being a gear drive transmission. We're going to run it in 1, 2, 3 and reverse, and then we're going to put it in the different ranges of gears. So A, B, C, A, B, and C on the John Deere, or I think it's 1, 2, 3 on Kubota, or however it is. But anyway, we want to run through each range of gear. We want to run through each of the gears on here. Make sure that every single one of them functions and functions as it's intended, and gives us an appropriate power and speed of what we're expecting that to be. All right. So the next thing we want to do, we want to go ahead and pop open that engine. And we want to check in here and see what's going on. You can see this one, it's all moist up here. We know that's just from diesel fuel spilling around as it's been loaded, so not a big deal. There is a little vacuum gauge over here for your air filter. I'm not 100% convinced on how accurate those things are. Bottom line is, we can go ahead and just pull this cover off right here, look right at our air filter and see how dirty it is. This one actually looks pretty dirty. You can see it. It actually looks fairly dirty for what I was expecting it to be, considering that we just replaced it. We just replaced it probably, I don't know, 20 hours ago. We put a lot of hours on our tractors, guys. So 20 hours is a couple weeks of driving for us. So anyways, I'm a little bit surprised on how dirty that is, but not the end of the world for us. Like I said, and again, not a big deal. It's easy to replace an air filter, but it's just indicative of the maintenance on the vehicle. So that's what we want to look at with it. Now you can see on our air filter, we also wrote the hours that we replaced that on. We took a paint marker and we wrote the hours on there. Good mechanics, good tractor owners tend to do that, so that's something that we can certainly look at. And we can look down here to pop this side panel off. Now we can look down here, we can look at the fuel filter. The fuel filter was replaced on this one at 166 hours. Now this one does have a new what do you call it, hour meter on there, so that's why it's only 166. It's actually closer to 1300 or so. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's actually on one of our videos on what the hours was, in case I could ever figure out how to adjust that. But so we can look through here, we can look at the side of the engine over here. We have full access to everything. We're going to go ahead and check the dipstick on here, and we'll pull the engine oil out. But we're also going to, while we're here, we're going to check the fuel filter on here, and we're going to see if we see any water, any contamination down there at the bottom of the fuel filter. This one looks really clean. I know that because we just replaced it again at 166 hours. We did everything on here. I'm not seeing any water collecting in the bottom of that fuel filter. Other than some dirt, we're not really seeing any problems over here. I've got no juiciness around any of the seals. We're not seeing any problems with oil leaking anywhere. And before we even get started with this whole thing, like I said, the first things that we want to do with the whole process is we want to go ahead and start up the engine, raise the bucket up. The other thing that we should do is we should go ahead and put a piece of cardboard or a drop cloth, painter's cloth, something underneath this tractor. Let's see how many drips we get. A little bit of juiciness is not a problem. We can have a drip or two over a 30-minute period of time. But if we're losing much more than that, then we've got to figure out, okay, what's that seal that's causing that, and what's the issue here. All right, guys, so you can see our oil looks really clean. Let me see if I can get that to focus. Sorry, guys. Autofocus sometimes is great, but not super helpful. This oil only has 15 hours on it, so you can see here on the fill indicator, we have the bottom of our fill indicator there, so our low end, our high end up there, we're right in the middle. So this oil has the appropriate amount of oil in it, and as well as it looks really clean and really nice. You can just see it's still got that golden color. It's not black yet. It looks really, really good. Now, I know it's hard to see in here. This is where our oil fill cap is right here. So on certain model tractors, you can take that oil fill cap off and you can set it over on top of the fill hole and see if you get any blow by with the engine running, and if it's real bad, it'll knock the cap off. But and the way this oil fill is designed and everything, there's no way to do that on this tractor. You have to check it out and be careful on which tractor you do that on. Some of them aren't supposed to be run with the cap off, but usually you can run it and you can check and make sure you don't have any blow by on there. And all that is we're checking to see if there's how the seals are. It's just a real quick, easy check without doing like a compression check or something like that, obviously. So so that's kind of the final step here on the oil that we want to look at. Okay, guys, that's about all we have for you. We're basically going to go step by step. We're going to look at hydraulic lines. We're going to look at electrical lines. We're going to look at all the fluids on here. Check each one of them out. Make sure they've all been maintained. Make sure we're not seeing any apparent or obvious leaks, and make sure we're not having any starting issues. Making sure that tractor's safety features are all functioning. That it turns off when it's supposed to turn off, and that it turns on when it's supposed to turn on. The last thing that I would probably check on here is how dirty the radiator is, but it's not a great indicator, because if anybody that's listing anything, you're going to power wash it or clean it up before you list it, so that should take care of that. If he's too lazy to power wash it before you come out there and buy it, that's kind of a sign of maintenance, guys. I'd probably be a little bit skeptical about it. I guarantee if we sold this thing, we would be power washing it. I'd be buying a can of John Deere spray paint to clean up edges and stuff like that on it and make it look really nice, so that we can get top dollar for it. That's just part of salesmanship and getting rid of things. So, okay, so the tools that you need to do this is a decent pair of gloves, some nitrite working gloves, some of those like the mechanics gloves. Those are really nice. Keep some of this crap off your hands, but it also allows you to see a little bit more of it. And so you end up not having all this on you, but also it'll give you a little bit better idea as you're wiping things down. Definitely want a rag for checking dipsticks and stuff like that. A tape measure, like I said, for checking that loader level. A good IR thermometer would be very nice to have. Potentially a little voltage ticker of some sort for DC voltage. Those would be very nice to have to be able to check different wires and make sure that those wires on the rear are functioning as they're intended. But really, guys, these tractors are simple enough. Now, if you got a newer tractor that has computers and OBD ports and stuff like that, that's a whole different ballgame. We're talking about older tractors, something that doesn't have computers, where we're just really worried about the mechanics of it. Luckily, these things are simple enough that if there's anything wrong with it, they're generally fairly easy to fix, but they do need to be fixed. So we got to be able to address them and have a reasonable idea of what it's going to cost to do that. Google's a great thing for you to have now. You can look up in all these parts and see. If you can't find it in a 5-minute Google search, you got to know that you're going to spend some time looking for it. Doesn't mean it's not out there. It means you're going to spend some time looking for it. So don't think you can immediately get parts just because it's a John Deere or whatever other brand. We want to make sure that we can have access to those parts and that we're going to be able to accomplish the repairs ourselves. Things like tearing apart axles and stuff like that, those can get to be a real nightmare, and so I don't want to deal with that if I don't have to. I want to let somebody else that's a pro deal with that, because they're going to be able to do it faster and better than I can anyways. I think that's everything, guys. I hope this video helps you out to figure out if you're looking at buying a new tractor, what to go look for and how to go through it. Like I said, what I would do is I would start at pick a starting point, work my way around, or pick a system. Hydraulics first, and then electrical, and then safety, and work my way through it. So I would do it one of those two ways, and I'd probably be more inclined to pick a system and work my way through it, and then rather than starting at one corner or another. You want to check those wear parts, see which ones you're going to have to replace, and then you want to check those parts that aren't wear parts and see which ones of those are going to have to be replaced. So thanks again for watching. Remember, Tractor Tip Tuesdays, guys, we're going to have those coming out here in the next probably 2 weeks. We'll start having Tractor Tip Tuesdays coming up. Those are going to be 3 to 6 minute videos of some type of tractor tip that I come up with or that I've learned over the years, and I want to share with you guys. So those will be available here soon. Just stick with us and we'll have them out to you. Thanks again for watching.